And foreign exchange pressure continued yesterday as the Naira depreciated against the dollar across market segments. But at the investors and exporters forex window, that's Nigeria's official FX market, we see the Naira closed about 71 kobo to trade at 770 Naira 71 kobo. That's according to FMDQ data yesterday. Let's talk to Dumebi Oluwole right now, and we'll get a sense of what's going on. Definitely, so a lot of pressure on the Naira at this point. So much pressure on the Naira, but let's get a sense of why there's so much pressure at this time. Joining me now is Dumebi Oluwole, Senior Analyst, Financial Derivatives Company. Dumebi, great to have you.
Great being here again.
Yeah, so much happened yesterday. Some, said it did hit that 1,000 level. I hope it didn't, but I'm sure maybe something must have happened, to drive that conversation, yesterday. But, looking at where we are right now, it did trade about 980.
Yes.
That's huge, and definitely, so much pressure. But this is at a time where oil prices did get to about $95, even though it's coming down now.
Yeah.
But shouldn't we be seeing some kind of, buffer or revenue increase at this point? Or is it not the same oil we're selling in the global market?
I mean, it is. That last question was pretty funny.
I know.
But then it is. It's the same oil. But before we even go into whether the government's going to make money from it, well, let's actually double down on what caused the Naira to depreciate and to depreciate at the black market. And what actually happened, there are two primary reasons for this. So lingering FX supply shortages and speculative buying. So the thing is, let's start with the supply shortages. The fact that dollar supply to the official window is still pretty thin and slim. That's one of the reasons why we're seeing a surge of demand at the parallel market. Now, following the FX reforms, the expectation is that everyone who needs Forex should be able to get it at the official rate.
Right.
But because supply is not sufficient at that window, we've seen over time reports of even commercial banks that should be able to access FX and then provide to individuals and businesses, but probably for BTAs or PTAs, they're not able to get the full amount get all their Forex needs, even from the official market, at least at the time that they would need it for. So that delay in sourcing Forex and supply shortages is feeding into market behaviors. So the expectation is that, okay, I'm not going to be able to get FX at the time when I need it, so I'll hoard it. So there's that speculative behavior happening, and that is one of the things that is fueling the fueling pressure on the Naira. So, but that's from the demand side. I was actually focusing more on the supply side. So now we've seen how that Forex supply is slim to the official window and pushing demand back to the Forex, back to the black market.
At the black markets, I did read yesterday the BDC operators were complaining that they do not have dollars.
It's like I mentioned, there's still that thin supply. So before now that you've mentioned that we're now going to go to the fundamentals behind sourcing or getting these dollars into the country that we will now end up trading. So if you look at Forex market like what it is, a market for trading currencies, then you understand why this is happening with Nigeria's currency. If there is not enough dollars to buy, if there's not enough dollars for individuals to get, then you continually see the FX, you continually see the Naira plunge and move with market sentiment. And considering the FX reforms that have already taken place, the expectation is that we're supposed to get enough Forex at the time we're supposed to get it, but that's not happening. And market participants are beginning to price in Nigeria's Forex market distortions into the market, and that's one of the reasons why we're also seeing the Naira plunge. But looking at the sources of FX and why this is currently happening with Nigeria, Nigeria has about 5 main sources of Forex inflows: oil revenues, non-oil revenues, remittance inflows, FPI inflows, and FDI inflows. But unfortunately, all of these 5 sources of forex coming to the country. We've seen significant declines from all of them in the past few years, and it's getting even worse. So if we look at crude oil, we know that yes, crude oil prices are higher now. Nigeria should be able to rake in some good money, but unfortunately our oil production has still not hit our estimated benchmark. But oil production benchmark in the 2023 budget about 1.69 million barrels per day.
But I thought we're winning the fight against oil theft at some point.
I mean, yes, that is happening, but what we're seeing is just a gradual uptick in oil production. That's what we're seeing. But like we all know, when preparing the budget, even for any company, now to talk of a nation, we know how much oil that we need to get to a certain level to get a certain amount of revenue that would eventually benefit the entire nation. The government has to make the government at 1.6 million barrels per day. Definitely, the government will be able to make enough money to break even for certain capital expenditures that would now have a ripple effect or multiplier effect on the economy. But we're not seeing that simply because we're not earning enough revenue from oil, and we're not earning enough from oil because we're not producing enough. Nigeria is more sensitive to changes in our oil production than oil prices. Earlier, I think a few months ago, we saw that there was a huge crash in Nigeria's oil production simply because the Forcados terminal was not, exporting or even producing enough. And one of the reasons for this was, vandalism, theft, and just a complete shutdown of that pipeline. But now that pipeline has, resumed production, we definitely would see an uptick in Nigeria's production. But like I mentioned before, the uptick is gradual, and so we're not raking in as much revenue. But on the flip side, with oil prices higher, trading at $90 or $95 per barrel, even though it's a bit lower now, what we'd see is with the fact that we're now getting FX at the revenue would be converted at the new official rate about 700. As of yesterday, was at 768. So what this means is that the federal government revenue from oil in Naira terms will increase, and that's why we're seeing an increase in FACT disbursement. And that increase in FACT disbursement will continue because the FX rate that the government is now using to convert the oil revenues that we're getting in Naira terms is higher, not because the dollar revenues have actually increased significantly.
Right.
So that's on one part, and that's addressing the part you mentioned about revenue. Then we look at investments coming into the country. Over time, since 2020, from 2020 up until today, Nigeria's Nigeria's capital inflows have been predominantly from portfolio investors, not FDIs. And for portfolio investment is just hot money,
right.
Money quick to come in, quick to go out. And even at that, these portfolio investors still, they've still raised concerns about taking their money out of Nigeria. So what we see is an influx of money into the NGX, which we saw when the reforms actually took place, and then an investment in stocks that are easily convertible from other stock exchanges.
Just looks like the NGX is the only party having all the fun.
Exactly. So what we see is an inflow of portfolio investment or portfolio funds into stocks like Airtel.
Right.
And that's because even if you're not able to get your money out of Nigeria, you could get your money through the London Stock Exchange. So, but that still goes to show how much even portfolio investors are still pricing in the risk of getting their money out of Nigeria as a factor with for their investment inflows into the country.
Because as an investor, you definitely have to look at the risk reward.
Exactly.
Exactly. If the risk is outweighing the reward, then
there's almost no point. And then when you look at what's happening globally, how that interest rates are still high, even though the U.S. Fed did, pause on its rate hikes, the ECB the Bank of England could actually do same because inflation slowed a bit in the UK. But the truth of the matter is interest rates are way higher than what they used to be, and advanced economies are looking more favorable for investors to put their money into than fragile emerging market economies like Nigeria. So there's that risk as well. And then when you look at the negative rate of return on Nigeria's investment treasury bill rates and inflation rates,
yeah.
you see that this is still pretty negative. Inflation of 25%, a treasury bill interest rate of 364-day is going about 12%.
Right.
So there's that. So all of these things are fueling into investor sentiment and significantly reducing it. Then you look at all the other things that are affecting businesses in Nigeria today.
Right.
The Naira is one of the major issues. The fact that companies bring in dollars and are not able to get their dollars out as quickly as they would need
right.
is affecting their ability to make long-term business decisions, long-term business investments and business commitments in Nigeria. Then if you even look at if you also look at the other incentives that should be able to bring in these kinds of investment that we need to actually set up shop in Nigeria or boost Nigeria's foreign dollar inflows, you see that these investments are really not working out for these businesses. Let's look at our special economic zones. They're not yet functioning as they should. And a typical example will be the Ogun Guangdong SEZ. The agreement is the Chinese contractors will build the infrastructure within the zone, and then the state government will build the infrastructure leading up to the zone.
Right.
But if you go there today, the roads are still pretty bad. So what is the incentive for a business to come in there? Then you also consider that this company...
So much to unpack.
There's a lot of things to unpack, especially when you look at the forex issues.
Right.
It's just a whole lot, but these are a lot of things that are still fueling into the sentiment for the Naira, because really, the market is now almost won. It's almost won. It's been collapsed. Yes, we still have a black market, but market participants are now free to price in their sentiments to the Naira.
Right.
And if they're pricing all of these risks, we'll definitely keep seeing these large swings in the Naira.
We definitely have a lot to do, maybe, and I'm definitely waiting for a time where the Naira will be in high demand. I can't wait for that to happen. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to that.
Dumebi Oluwole, Senior Analyst, Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.